The reason that these woods are slated to be cut really is a function of demand. It's a function of our society's hunger for new raw materials. And basically the woods here are a renewable resource. The question is, how do we go about extracting those resources for our use? And really, are we taking more than we need? And if you look at the way we consume and the way that we throw things out that we consume, I think it's fair to conclude that really we are using more than we need, and that demand has created a fashion of logging that really is not sustainable.
To cut a little firewood. We got a permit from the Ministry of Natural Resources to utilize a little bit of the logging debris that's left behind by the sustainable cutting that is supposedly going on up here. And we're helping it be a little bit more sustainable by catching it at the tail end and using what they have left behind. So we get to heat our homes with what other people didn't want. And it's a beautiful end of the last day of June. A little bit of break from the black flies today, and heading out with Josh and Seamus to do a little bit of work so in the winter we can be a little bit warmer. It's all about the tree marking when you go in and before you even start the sawn, you go in and decide what trees you're going to cut. So in the selection system, they're cutting 30% for removal, and you see the red marks on the trees. With a so-called shelter wood, it's a little bit misnamed, but it's actually a two-stage clear cut. They're marking blue for retention, and then they're removing 50 to 60% of the trees. So it's a much more vigorous cut, and you'll see the difference up here. They're both intolerant hardwoods. Tolerant hardwoods are not a fire-driven ecosystem, so it's nature is really just gap replacement, whatever the wind is thrown down, or whatever that naturally falls out of the forest, which isn't very much. It's a tree here and a tree there.
So this is an area that's affected much differently when it's cut so openly, like we're going to see.
Yeah, you're going to see places where probably the sun has never hit the forest floor to this degree. What's happening now? It happens to coincide with climate change. So you're getting much more heating at the forest floor. You're getting much more edge effect, more wind driven through it, and across a wide range, probably 1,000 hectares is affected by this up here. Contiguous two-stage clear cuts. But in the tolerant hardwoods, it's unforgivable. Well, I mean, that's a skidder mark, probably approaches a 45-degree angle. It's way beyond what these big machines should be doing, but you see the result. Water coming down, and you can see it going into this creek, which is not far from the next trout lake that it's flowing into. It's taken away all the topsoil right to the mineral soil, and this is just the first year. It's going to continue until that's just a big V there. They're changing water courses, and we're removing what's never been removed before. There's no reason for it because there's other better access points. It could go up the gradual slope over here. It's just sheer laziness. Go up there and drag the wood down here.
And then it's right next to a creek.
Yeah. Silt, and silt pretty well does in fish habitat. So. You can see the water's all brown and muddy here.
But these logs that are basically 7 feet long are not going to get used.
I don't think they have a market for the 7-footers there. They don't fit on log trucks. They have to be 8 feet until they come to a way to utilize those. But until then, they just get left behind. And there's not enough firewood cutters around to utilize the waste. And this isn't even a shelterwood cut. This is a selection cut, which is supposedly 30% removal. Of course, it's much more than that.
There are millions upon millions of board feet of timber that are being taken out of here over the next several years, but you want to just notice the amount of damage that's caused by logging. Now, the other thing about back here is if you look in each of these ravines, the skidder tracks have created a tremendous amount of erosion. So, where we're standing and the top of the hill here is probably a difference of elevation of about 70 feet. And you basically have a almost straight line up the hill in each of these cases, and it's the shortest distance between 2 points. Now the problem with that is that because these vehicles are so big and because they create such such big gouges in the ground, and this area gets as much rain as it does, that soil almost immediately starts flowing down the hill in the form of silt. And if you look, you can't quite see it, but there's basically at the foot of this hill a huge muddy pond, and then that water is now going to be carried into the lakes that are below us and the streams that are below us, and it has a really big impact. Next time you have a piece of furniture that you don't like anymore, or you come across something that you want to throw out, it's worth thinking about the reason it's even feasible to throw it out, that being as cheap as it is because it comes to you through really, really big environmental costs. To give you an idea of where the silt that we're talking about ends up, this is a stream that's actually downhill from the area that we just were. Now, logging hasn't actually started here. It'll be starting in the next 1 to 2 years. If you look around here, this is what the woods look like. And they've looked like for the better part of 2,000 years. And the changes that are happening in these woods are a function of demand. They're a function of our hunger for cheap stuff,